All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick and Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, back with another episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast, powered by our good friends over at Prize Picks, and Taylor, powered by another New England Patriots win. This shit's easy at this point. I don't know what's going on. I mean, it feels like nothing of the last couple of years. Patriots are now 6 and 2. They beat the Browns 32-13. The defense, they are still in first place in the AFC East, even though the Buffalo Bills won because they are now ahead of them. After that head-to-head win a couple weeks ago, Patriots have been rolling since. Defense allows just 13 points yesterday. Quinshon Judkins had just 2.1 yards per carry on, I believe, 6 or 9 attempts. I forget what it is. He ended up leaving with an injury, but they still kept that streak alive, not allowing an opposing running back to rush for 50 yards. So the defense stayed stout, but we can't bury the lead here. We can't start without Drake Maye. As you see in the title of the show, we're going to talk about Drake Maye being the potential MVP favorite in the NFL right now, which I'll say it right off the top, Taylor. He's my MVP right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it anymore. I'm not going to try and work around it, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But Drake Maye in this game against the Cleveland Browns goes 18 of 24. Once again, a 75% completion percentage for 282 yards, 3 touchdowns, and that tough interception in the first half. But he did also have 50 yards rushing, and he is third in MVP odds, which is where I kind of want to transition to this right now. Because when you look at it, it's Patrick Mahomes 1, it's Josh Allen 2, and it's Drake Maye 3, which saying that off the bat is just crazy to think about 8 games into this kid's second year, but that's exactly where we are. And to me, given what is around Josh Allen, given what's around Patrick Mahomes, now, their rosters aren't perfect, but they have better rosters than the Patriots right now. Mm-hmm. They've done it before. They've been throughout the league. They've gone to AFC title games. Mahomes has obviously won Super Bowls. But the fact that Drake Maye is doing this in year 2, the way he's doing it, and having the impact he's had on this team, to me, he is 100% the MVP of the league. I mean, just even like, yes, Stephon Diggs is stepping up. Kayshon Boutte's stepping up, but that throw down the sideline to him was a freaking handoff right into Kayshon Boutte's hands for a touchdown. So I know we're going to get into it in a second, and I'll hand it over to you to start with the Drake Maye stuff here. But A, what'd you see on film from Drake when you broke it down last night into today? And are you still as high on his performance from last night as you are today? And is he the MVP in your mind? Has he done enough through 8 weeks, approaching the second half of the NFL season here, to really tell you and show you that, look, this guy is making the most impact on his team through the first half of the season?
I think the fact that Drake Maye threw probably the worst interception he's had as a pro and had a forced fumble, so 2 turnover-worthy plays after a pretty good stretch of protecting the ball, and it's something that kind of just gets lost in the wash because of everything else.
Yeah,
it's pretty good, man. I don't know if you necessarily the turnover-worthy plays or MVP caliber stuff, but his ability to maybe have those issues and still put up enough production for that to really be at the back of everyone's heads and ultimately in the back of a blowout really just says a lot about what this kid's doing. And I think the deep ball stuff should have been expected. The explosiveness as a runner should be expected. Yes, the throw to Kayshon Boutte, I love that concept also. It was one example of Josh McDaniels being in his bag because we've seen so many times Kayshon Boutte run that dig route, especially against zone coverage. But on that particular play, Kayshon Boutte makes it look like he's running a dig, then takes off. And like we said, man, perfect pass from Drake Maye. That wasn't even the only really impressive deep throw he had, though. There was also the actual dig before 2 minutes that set up an Andy Borregales field goal that got them the lead. And also one that I don't think got talked about enough because it was so late in the game. But in the fourth quarter, he had a deep out to Mac Hollins with Denzel Ward in off coverage and managed to throw that with anticipation as Hollins was rounding out of his route and connect there. So the anticipation that he has shown deep, we saw in college, but the fact that it's translating in the NFL and becoming something that we're seeing every single week, I think he was 4 for 5 or something like that on deep passes yesterday, tells you a lot. On the one scramble that he had early, pulling away from the linebacker to turn it not just into a solid gain, but an explosive gain. And then right before the throw to Kayshon Boutte, taking off down the middle, a really good play because the Browns were in man coverage, and then completely flipping the field position like that. So those are things we've come to expect. But what's impressed me even more is the processing and what we're seeing from Drake in that regard, because defenses are disguising against him with a lot of zones. Like we see this inverted Tampa 2, where you have maybe a safety kind of coming over to be that deep defender instead of what it usually looks like pre-snap, which is either man coverage or some kind of single high zone. Those looks really don't slow him down. And I remember over the summer we kind of talked about it against the Vikings. Their disguise cover 2 looks were giving him some trouble. But now it really isn't doing a whole lot to really screw up his process. And the fact that not only can he exploit these disguise zone coverage, but also we're seeing him start on one side of the field and work all the way to the other, like we saw on the Ramondre Stevenson slant. Stephon Diggs didn't like it, still was able to make a positive play out of that. Not the most accurate ball, but still a really impressive processing play. And then just dropping it into the holes of all these zone coverages, taking hits, getting sacked 5 times by Myles Garrett. One of those was his fault, though. He should have thrown it away. Instead, he tried to stiff arm Myles Garrett and almost gave me a freaking heart attack. Another thing that he really needs to get better at. But the fact that he's willing to take hits and really doesn't seem phased at all, because how many other young quarterbacks can you think of that would really just crumble after getting hit that many times? Even on the double pass, he takes a pretty big shot there.
The way he stood in there was pretty much flawless, to be able to stand in and just deliver. No, I'm going to get my shit rocked right now, but I have to stand in here and throw it because Mac's wide open.
Exactly. Now, it wasn't perfect yesterday. I will say there were times I thought he held on to the ball, because one thing to note about all his sacks, they all took place over 4 seconds after the ball was snapped, and only 2 of those were play actions. One of those play actions was the bootleg where he tried to stiff arm Myles Garrett. So it's kind of hard to blame the blocking alone, especially because I thought Hunter Henry did such a good job slowing Myles Garrett down, but we'll get to that later. But there were times where, with separation an issue sometimes, yes. Now, I thought Mac Hollins actually got open multiple times, especially deep downfield. Don't necessarily expect Drake to get there all the time. And on one of those play fakes where they tried to do a half boot, but there was breakdowns all over the place. Like Garrett Bradbury ended up hurting Hunter Henry on a block that wound up in the Alex Wright sack. The left side, Ramondre Stevenson and Will Campbell gave up quick pressure. Morgan Moses lost inside. Like, that was one of the few really bad reps from the offensive line where it's like, yeah, I don't know what Drake could have done there. But there were also times like in the red zone where it was great that we had Hunter Henry scoring a touchdown, Stephon Diggs scoring touchdowns. And also I love that the motion from each of those guys helped the other one score a touchdown. I thought that was really fun. But you had a play where he's kind of staring at Kayshon Boutte, who I felt like he could have come off it a lot quicker. Hunter Henry was helping out with Myles Garrett, then came open over the middle, but Drake Maye gets sacked. Another play where he's kind of staring down Hunter Henry as he's kind of like last week where we docked him for not throwing to Hunter Henry and getting off physical coverage. This time it was Hunter Henry against Denzel Ward, which I don't like that matchup to begin with. I wish he had maybe gone somewhere else. But pressure got there a little quickly, but still felt like he was holding on to it. So one thing I've always said, especially with Belichick, when you're going up against Mahomes and, Allens and those guys, is you have to play man coverage. You may not love it because, yes, those guys are so athletic, they can burn you. But if you're playing disciplined, it's one of the only ways you beat these really athletic and smart quarterbacks, because they're going to read through your disguises. Your zones aren't really going to do a whole lot to dissuade them, so you need to beat the receivers. And that's something I didn't think the Patriots did a great job against. Like even Demario Douglas's crossing routes, which feel open every single week, and I think against most competition he will get open. I felt like he was pretty well covered at times. Like on the Schwarzenegger interception, I thought that there was really tight coverage and a defender who maybe could have peeled back and made a play on that ball. I'm not positive. The depth was a little funky, but I just didn't love the decision, even with yes, he forgot that the linebacker was allowed to jump, apparently.
That's a good quote.
But also, I didn't love the decision necessarily. So another non-perfect day for Drake Maye, but I mean, he was perfect when he needed to be. When he had to kick it into overdrive in the third quarter, he was able to do that and set himself in a position where he only had to, drop back like 3 or 4 times in the fourth quarter. So also a great performance from the defense, which we'll get into later. But I still need to see Drake against the Buccaneers. I'd like to see him against maybe not the Falcons defense. I don't know how much of a litmus test that is now, but the Buccaneers and maybe that next game against the Bills to really see how he's going to look against the best competition they're going to face on the schedule. Maybe the Ravens get a little bit healthier and they can give the Patriots a bit of a challenge. But I mean, he's beating up on these boys so bad. And it's like, I joked about it after the game. He reaches the avatar state once a game where he completely locks in and doesn't make any egregious errors and doesn't throw incompletions. And when you're breaking as we've kind of been saying the past couple of weeks, where it's not crazy to say that he's in the MVP conversation, even if it feels early, because he's beating records from some of the best quarterback seasons in history, namely Tom Brady.
He broke that Brady one. I was going to mention that. Yep.
From 2007. So
yep.
I think he absolutely has put himself in the conversation. Now I think the national media is really starting to catch up. It was kind of a whisper, it felt like, the past couple weeks, but now it's a roar. And he deserves it, because as imperfect as he's been, there's no one who is producing as efficiently as he is. And that's with him having plenty of room to grow in pretty much all of these games that we review, which is a scary thought for the NFL, because 23-year-old in his second season, and Josh McDaniels hopefully isn't going anywhere, and this run game's looking better. So, I mean, the Patriots, again, still ways to go, but it feels like this offense is starting to trend in the right direction, or is continuing to trend in the right direction.
Funny quote from Drake yesterday. Accidental, but it got a lot of run, was him saying that Josh McDaniels was made to be an offensive coordinator. Everyone was like, people should have told the Colts, the Broncos, and the Raiders that he was only supposed to be an OC and not a head coach. But again, that's exactly what Josh is, right? He's great at what he does here. You saw it yesterday. I think you mentioned Drake being 23 and his resilience being that young as what's been so incredible, right? Because he does throw an early pick, but he bounces back and he hits that, you called it the avatar mode, but just that locked in, like 6 for 6 for 3 touchdowns in the third quarter. Like, it was insane. All of a sudden, they just come out of half. He's like, they had that perfect script right out of the locker room, and it was just bang, 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 score, score, score. And all of a sudden, there was an absolute blowout, and we couldn't believe that there was still another quarter to play. The fact that they had that much production in that quick span was incredible. And for him to have these sort of slow starts in games, and he was a little erratic early on in the year, and then was able to bounce back and have some great games. Like, he's just able to lock in and not get in his own head and play great football. Like, he's just, again, I say it every week, but he truly is just building every single game. And yes, I agree that I want to probably see it against a little bit better competition, or at least against a team where, like, yeah, they scored 32 points, but they only let up 13. So it wasn't really like a shootout back and forth into the 30s, into the 40s, where it's like, and not that you want the defense to give that up, but against Tampa, for example, a high-powered offense like that, it could turn into a shootout. So seeing May do that against Baker Mayfield, another one of these sort of, top MVP candidates in that conversation with Mahomes and Allen, that's when it's really going to click. But again, looking at the odds, he's third right now behind Allen and Mahomes. And I would say that he's made maybe not a better impact. Like, it's hard to take away from those guys, but the rosters, the way that those guys have done it, Drake's first to second year leap that he's going through right now, like, there's no question about it that he is in that conversation 100%. And it's not like after week 2 or week 3 when we talked about Drake being a top 5 quarterback on the show and I pushed back on John. Like, it's over. It's here. And Drake Maye's arrived. So it's fun. It's super exciting to cover him. It's super exciting to see. And again, the fact that the Patriots are 6-2 at this point through the season is definitely giving Patriots fans some hope and a reason to believe in another franchise quarterback post Tom Brady. So good stuff from the quarterback position, but we got a lot more to get to here across the board, mainly on offense. We will hit on it right now. It's Myles Garrett versus Will Campbell. Now, Myles Garrett did have 5 sacks in this game. 2 were addressed, if you will, to Will Campbell. Myles Garrett actually spoke about Will Campbell after the game, said that he's strong. You want to set the tempo and the pace of the game with power. He was able to be pretty firm in his stance and keep me from knocking him back and just trying to hit him with different looks and try to keep him off guard. So he had some solid praise for Will Campbell. I know that people were worried about this matchup throughout the week, given that Myles Garrett is the beast that he is. But overall, he held up pretty well against them. What did you see from the rookie against one of the best defenders in football?
I think he exceeded any reasonable expectations we could have really had on the outside, because we've never seen him go up against a guy like Myles Garrett. Now, Myles mentioned he watched Will Anderson, who he called Lil Bro because of how he plays, and Will Anderson is obviously a freak in his own right. And Will Anderson did give Will Campbell a tough time a couple years back when they were both in college. But man, I was really impressed by what I saw from Will Campbell. So during the game, I remember somebody tweeted at me saying, do you think that the chips from Hunter Henry are actually hurting him? At the time, I was almost offended at the idea, because I'm looking at it like Hunter is giving some fantastic help here.
Yeah.
He consistently was able to either hold Myles Garrett up, alter his route, force him to go a little bit wider and help Will Campbell there. just do little things that set Will Campbell up for success. But Will, I don't think he's a guy that's used to getting that level of pressure. Usually when he's getting help, it's chips, right? It's from Andre Stevenson, and they have pretty good rapport there. There was one chip in particular, but we had never really seen Hunter Henry giving him that level of help as much as he did. And you did see at times Will didn't look comfortable. On the one sack, there was clearly just way too much space between him and Myles Garrett after the chip from Hunter Henry. And this is the thing I was afraid of, is the arm length thing kind of comes and rears its ugly head when you lunge. I'm not saying that's necessarily what it was. I just think there was a spacing issue, but it's those where it's like a game of inches, and I don't want to say an inch exactly. Maybe
Come on.
I'm not saying that. But when I saw him lunging, I was like, oh, that's it. That's what I was afraid of. So early in the game, I was really worried about this matchup. And he did obviously allow another sack. That one was actually in tighter quarters. That was just crazy that Myles Garrett is bigger than Will Campbell and still managed to dip underneath and quickly beat him for another sack. So the sacks were quick losses with chip help. But Will Campbell deserves credit because you saw him getting better during the game in those situations. You saw him actively trying to close space. Like, after the first time, it was just a really big gap. You saw him get closer. There was even one where Hunter was blocking Myles, and Will Campbell was literally behind Hunter and just kind of waiting for the pass off. So I think you could tell that he was trying to make the improvements. There was another one where Will timed his hit perfectly. It was a wide path that Hunter Henry forced him to take, and Will kind of waited for him to get in the right angle, then ran and shoved him around the arc, which is something we see from Morgan Moses all the time. And one-on-one, Will Campbell looked significantly better than he did with chip help, which you wouldn't expect. But if that's just something that he doesn't get a ton in college, he wasn't getting much of any help, then you can see why, that was just a different kind of a test for him.
Sure.
But one-on-one, I counted 8 pure matchups where it was just Myles Garrett, Will Campbell, no twists, no games, no help, nothing. The only time Myles Garrett beat him definitively was on that Euro step, which to Will's credit, he actually beat it at one point in the game, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know you were allowed to do that. But Myles Garrett, being as big and explosive as he is, his ability to just take one step, and if he wants, he can end up like 2 gaps away.
He floats. It's insane.
And it forces you to respect it, just like in basketball, where if a guy makes a huge move like that, you can't just stand there.
Right.
And then it opens it up on the outside for him to be able to do what he does best. So that was the only time I really saw Will lose. But other than that, like Garrett said, his ability to stand up to power. Like, you didn't see Will getting put on skates, which is what Myles Garrett wants to do. Just like all of the greats, you build it with power, and then everything else comes off of that, just like we've also heard from Mike Smith and the philosophy for the Patriots defense. But the anchor against power, the poise and patience against speed, he was not afraid of Myles Garrett's explosiveness off the edge, and that was something that you would expect for a rookie. I don't care if you're the 4th overall pick in a draft. Like, that's a tough position to be in, and it's very scary because Myles Garrett is fantastic at everything, but especially outside. But Will Campbell, this Patriots team preaches, especially with just Josh McDaniels, protect inside out, right? You have to make sure that you're not sacrificing your inside leverage to try to protect the corner. You just want to push the guy around and give your quarterback room to step up. He was fantastic in that regard, I thought. I really thought he timed his punches very well. And Myles Garrett, when he really just tried to rip around the edge for the most part in those one-on-one matchups, didn't have a lot of success. And kind of speaking to Garrett's overall performance, he did get Jared Wilson on a twist where Campbell tried to pass him off. And I mean, Jared just got put in a tough spot, man. Like, Myles Garrett with a bit of a head of steam bull rushing you when you're caught off guard is tough. That led to a sack. Like I mentioned, Drake Maye was responsible for one of the other sacks. And PFF didn't credit anybody with one of Morgan Moses or one of, Garrett's other sacks. But I thought that Mike Nwenu probably should have passed off his guy on a twist because he wound up literally with his back to Myles Garrett, and there was no way Morgan Moses could have gotten to him. So I thought maybe Nwenu shared some partial credit for one of those sacks, but Will Campbell specifically, you have to walk away from this performance impressed by him and his ability to show the level of calm and collectedness he did. Again, like Drake Maye, despite the fact that he had his struggles, he gave up 2 sacks for the first time in his career and still didn't get down on himself and continued to fight. That was fantastic to see. And we always talk about the mental resilience and toughness for this Patriots team. It starts with their young guys. You got a 23-year-old rookie, and what's Will Campbell, still 22? Like, young guys who were extremely mentally tough and are reasons. They're not just players that you win with. They're reasons you are winning the game. So I was really blown away by what I saw from Will Campbell in those one-on-one opportunities especially. But also, even though he did struggle when he was given help, understanding how he can improve as the game went forward. I'm sure Doug Marrone and maybe some of his teammates helped as well, but you got to do it on the field, and he absolutely did. So credit to him, man. And Garrett, yes, he had 5 sacks. So I can be like, yeah, but he didn't have any other hits and only 2 other hurries. Like, yeah, but he had 5
sacks. There's not much else to say. Right.
Yeah. Also, like Morgan Moses, the 2 hurries came with hump moves against Morgan Moses because he was worried about the speed, turned his hips. Myles Garrett put his hand in his chest and threw him. Like, the dude's a freak. And against that kind of power, Will Campbell held his own, man. Really, really good stuff.
That's what I was going to say. The fact that, like, he's faring similarly to a guy in Morgan Moses who's been in the league for 10-plus years, and, like, he's able to hold his own at 22 years old is incredible. And yes, he did allow 2 sacks. Like, it wasn't necessarily perfect, but for a rookie in his 8th game versus the best defender in football against a perennial defensive player of the year candidate, like, that's encouraging. And everyone wants to get on these Patriots draft classes over the last couple of years, and I get it, but they've nailed the last 3 first-round picks in Gonzalez, May, and now Will Campbell. So they certainly have the building blocks there. And again, another impressive performance from Will Campbell, showing that he was worth the 4th overall pick. Like, we talked about it, pundits talked about it, where it almost felt like the Patriots need to take Will Campbell at 4 because there's nobody else there, and maybe it's a little bit of a reach in other drafts, and it would blah, 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 all that nonsense. I don't want to call it nonsense, but there was all that talk around it. He's showing that he's actually worth being that 4th overall pick. So really impressive stuff from the left tackle.
Also, I want to give him credit for speaking. I didn't get to see that part. I know John was telling us about John Serenides because he was in the locker room at that point.
Okay.
Will Campbell faced the music, and he did speak to reporters after the game. And what I'm sure for him, like, we can praise him all we want because our expectations are one thing. But for him, man, I'm sure he was pissed about giving up those 2 sacks. Even if he made
that. Yep.
Yeah, and he faced the music, and I really thought that was impressive for a young player to be willing to do that and be honest about the matchup. So credit to him for that as well.
100%. Before we hit a break and before we get to one more thing on the offense, any other notes on the rest of the offensive line and how they fared against this entire Cleveland front?
I was really locked in on Will Campbell mostly, but they were good. Okay. Garrett Bradbury, I think he only allowed 1 other pressure. Okay. Mike Nwonu wasn't perfect. I thought he gave up some pressures as well. And like I said, there was that 1 sack off the bootleg where it was just multiple lapses. Travion Henderson, give him credit, starting to continue to show improvement as a pass blocker. There was a play fake, I think it was on the one of Mac Hollins' crossers late in the game, where he was supposed to execute the run fake, but Grant Delpit was coming off the edge, and instead of doing that, he aborted, blocked his man, and did a good job of it. So credit to him as well, because it's easy for us to point out when Travion Henderson doesn't do things well, but when he does deserve to get some recognition. So kudos, man. These rookies had pretty good days, and we're gonna keep talking about Henderson. So
I was gonna say we'll get to the rest of Travion in just a second, and then we'll wrap up with some defensive thoughts from this Patriots win. But before we do, I'm gonna tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks, because as you know, this episode and every episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast is powered by our friends over at Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better on the Prize Picks app, and even though the weather might be changing, the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. It's super simple to play on Prize Picks. All you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. So get in on the football action in more than 40 states right now, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And the best part about Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports app that allows stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. So for example, tonight, Chiefs Commanders, if you want to take Patrick Mahomes to have more passing yards, more rushing yards, and more touchdowns, you can do that all in the same lineup, only on the Prize Picks app right now. So what are you waiting for? Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. And I can't take the video off. Where are we? There it is. Prize Picks. I hit my Prize Picks yesterday in that Pats game. I had Quinshon Judkins less than 65.5 rushing yards. I had Drake Maye more than 1.5 passing yards. That hit. We'll carry it over into Monday Night Football. I'll have a lineup out a little bit later on, so check it out on my Twitter feed. But if you guys want to join in on the action with us, download Prize Picks, use code CLNS, and you get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. All right, let's continue on here talking about this Patriots 32-13 win over the Browns yesterday. And we're going to talk about TreVeyon Henderson, who finally saw an uptick in production, in snaps on Sunday against Cleveland. He had 10 carries for 75 yards. He had a long of 27, and he looked comfy. We talked about it a little bit yesterday on the post-game show, but it looks like it looked like he was being a little bit more patient, reading his blocks a little bit better, instead of just kind of using that speed and trying to hit the hole as fast as possible. Now, he did fumble on the goal line, which was unfortunate. But overall, I think there was still plenty of good to take away from TreVeyon's performance. What did you see in the film from the second-round rookie?
It was fun. Finally.
Yeah.
Fun TreVeyon Henderson save for the first time since preseason, and we understood why. Even TreVeyon admitted that the speed of the NFL game was something he had to get used to. He's acknowledged that before. He acknowledged it last night. We could all see it because it didn't feel like he was allowing blocks to develop. It felt like he was rushing things, and it just didn't feel like he was seeing the field particularly well. Now, in college, to be fair, most of his success came on power and tosses. Those are plays where you're supposed to go is pretty much already defined. And of course, you can make the most of it by waiting and being patient, which he did a better job of in college, but it was something that people were questioning, especially on more inside runs. But man, last night you finally saw it. And not just TreVeyon executing well, but it was Josh McDaniels being creative in his play calling that I really loved. Like, it's kind of funny. TreVeyon Henderson gets the fun runs, and Ramondre just gets stuff. It's like, yep, run right into the teeth of the
quick and dirty, like
power, like duo, inside zone, like all of that stuff. So when you see their numbers, there's a reason why Ramondre's didn't look really good, even though he also had a great game. But like TreVeyon's first carry is a wham play where you got Jack Westover blocking. I think it was Mason Graham. Jared Wilson did a great job to seal Malik Collins and let TreVeyon Henderson get loose up the middle. But most of his success came outside, specifically to the right. So all of those runs, again, successful. I think he had 5 successful runs to the outside right. All of those were tosses, but Josh McDaniels making them look different was a big part of that success, because you could just run like crack toss 5 times, right? What Josh did was he mixed in a power fake, which we saw against the Bills, and that run has been money for them, by the way, where they fake power to one side and then they toss it opposite the flow, which is just really hard for anybody in the box to be able to defend, because everything except the running back's second step is telling you that you're going in the opposite direction. So you had that. And most of the success was from 2-back looks, but different kinds. So that one had Jack Westover. There was also a shotgun look where you had Ramondre Stevenson to the right, TreVeyon Henderson to the left, and they actually faked a handoff to Ramondre Stevenson. Hunter Henry's coming across the field. Initially, you're thinking, oh, this is split zone. Hunter Henry's going to get outside and try to set up some kind of cutback lane for Ramondre. What it actually was, had TreVeyon Henderson coming behind Drake. He fakes the handoff, tosses to TreVeyon Henderson, and Hunter Henry, instead of blocking the edge, ends up becoming a lead blocker for TreVeyon Henderson on the outside, along with Morgan Moses. And then you also had like outside zone or like pin pull kind of looks. You had crack toss, which is more of a gap concept. So different styles of blocking it, but still the exact same idea and to the same side. So I was really impressed by that. Morgan Moses looked awesome in space for such a big dude and also 36 years old. I mean, I talked about this in the when he first got signed, that like Morgan Moses is sneaky, really scary when he gets out on crack tosses. Usually we think about Will Campbell because he's young, he's athletic and all that. Morgan Moses is also very good. And Jared Wilson at the second level, whoo! This is what we've been waiting for with Jared Wilson, that crazy athleticism and mobility and the strong hands to bully linebackers like he did in college. I think we finally saw that getting going, and especially on these outside zone and like toss plays and things like that. So that's the blocking. But TreVeyon made the most of it because he was patient to let some of these things develop, showed some contact balance as well, made guys miss, and then obviously the speed to get to the edge. Where there was one play where Matt Collins missed his block on the play, I think, where Hunter Henry was coming around, and even still, TreVeyon was able to outrun 2 different guys to get outside. Now, we have to acknowledge he did have a pretty bad fumble right outside of the end zone. And those are ones where there were a lot of times in this game where in a closer game, there were mistakes that could have made the difference. Like you had the terrible punt from Bryce Behringer. You had the onside kick they didn't recover. Like there were a lot of things. And not to mention on TreVeyon's best run, this was very sneaky. It actually got punched out. It didn't count as a fumble, but somebody came up from behind and punched the ball. He immediately brings it back into his body. So he didn't actually lose possession. But that's kind of reminds me of Jonathan Jones, right? Like you got to make sure you're protecting that thing, because in a closer game, if you get the wrong bounce and that goes left while you're kind of going up the sideline towards the right, towards the open field, that's dangerous. So great Great improvement from TreVeyon Henderson. If they can continue to look like this on the ground, because we said before, I didn't know how they were really going to get the ground game going, because even though it was good against the Titans, who were terrible, the fact they were so inconsistent worried me. But if TreVeyon is going to be able to maximize what blocking they give him, and we can look like this at the second level, then you're talking about a terrifying passing attack, but also with the running game that can supplement it, put games away late, make it so that Drake doesn't have to be elite and do all these crazy things. Like, he could just be efficient on 20, 25 dropbacks. That's how you want to play these games. So a great step in the right direction for the blocking for the second week in a row, but specifically TreVeyon Henderson. Also want to give a shout out to Ramondre Stevenson. The stats may not look great, but he had 3 second effort runs where he initially just ran into a pile and either spun off or kept his legs churning for more yards that he probably shouldn't have gotten. So Ramondre looked very good, but also TreVeyon finally have its kind of, I don't know if we can call it a coming out party, because it wasn't 100 yards or no
scores,
the receiving touchdown and everything we know he can do. But as a rusher, this was absolutely his best game of the season. And he was, I think, top 5 in terms of production with missed tackles forced, yards after contact, breakaway runs, top 5 back of the week. So shout out to him as well. A really good showing from a lot of these Patriots rookie offensive players.
Well, like you said, it's not, again, it's tough to call it a coming out party just yet, because like you said, he didn't have an impact in the passing game, maybe a little bit as a blocker, but not as a receiver. Didn't score, but it showed that something's going and something's clicking behind the scenes, whether it's a practice or they trust him enough to give him 10 carries and for him to go out there and, again, have a long explosive play and to, understand more so what they want to kind of try and do in the run game. So he showed that 100% here on Sunday. And it gives, like you said, it gives you hope that they can balance it out more and not have to balance it out more and just rely on Ramondre, right? They can now rely on this rookie a little bit more, kind of get him in the flow a little bit and not have this be the redshirt rookie season from a running back that we've talked about so many times in Josh McDaniel's system. So good stuff overall from the offense, obviously, as they score 32 points. But the defense showed up in this one as well. So we'll start there right away and talk about this secondary for the Patriots finally showing up. Dillon Gabriel ends up going, I wanted to switch the screen. Dillon Gabriel goes 21 of 35. He has 156 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns, but he did also throw 2 interceptions, one of which did come from the secondary, Jalen Hawkins, on that just filthy interception on that long ball attempt from Gabriel. Basically one-handed, was able to reel it in. The other one comes from Robert Spillane. But plenty of pass breakups, across the board from these guys in the back end. You had some from Marcus Jones. They tested Christian Gonzalez in the end zone with Jerry Jeudy. Not, like you said, not 100% sure why they tried to do that in this one. But it looked like overall this secondary finally got their swagger back, granted, against a rookie quarterback. But what did you see from those guys in the back end?
Yeah, rookie quarterback and not the best receiving core. I also wish we'd seen more man coverage. That was one thing I was anticipating. Maybe because this passing game was so bad, they were going to say, you know what, we're just going to try to run with these boys, do our best, and we think we can cover them. And that wasn't exactly the case, but when they were in man coverage, they were pretty sticky. And even in zone, I continue to be impressed by what they are able to do, considering we know this isn't really a zone team, at least historically, like you built it to be playing a lot of man coverage. But also the quarters coverages that they play, I think they majored in cover 2, and then second most was quarters. It's so flexible. There's times where both outside corners are actually in man coverage. So it's not like they're just wasting Christian Gonzalez, right? He's not just sitting there in cloud coverage all the time. He's not in a deep quarter zone, just, trying to protect over the top. There are times where they will have man coverage adjustments or little tweaks that they make so that they can respond to whatever they're expecting from the offense. And I just thought these guys were fantastic. So Christian Gonzalez was targeted 7 times. He had 2 catches for 3 yards, and he had a pass breakup. Marcus Jones, 5 receptions allowed on 6 targets. Okay, but for 23 yards, a pass breakup, and 2 total forced incompletions. Jalen Hawkins allowed 1 catch on 3 targets. That was a 4-yard gain. And then, like you said, he had the ridiculous interception where Marcus Jones was saying he definitely seems more comfortable, like he's being very communicative in the defense. And this is someone who's been he shows up once a week, it feels like. Yep, and we couldn't 100%. Say that last year. If anything, if you noticed Hawkins, a lot of time it was for bad reasons. Other than that, it was just yes, he exists, but he's not really an impact player for you, which is why we were a bit surprised when he came back. Yeah. And it's honestly very cool to see because Jalen Hawkins is one of the most fun people to interview. He's great with us. He's very open and gives us great info. He walks that line of giving great information, but he never says too much. But you walk away going I feel like that guy really did do his best to be helpful. So to see him break out has been fantastic, man. He's really become a playmaker for them on the back end. showing the range, showing the intelligence. Really happy for him. Craig Woodson did allow an 11-yard touchdown. That is, I'm kind of upset that it happened for him because he clearly saw it coming. He's sitting on it, charges, and it was just like he missed it by a fingernail. So
and then it was a filthy catch by Njoku too to kind of come down with that spinning around. So
exactly, and he had 2 run stops. And Craig Woodson has been a very good run defender this season. I think he's one of the higher graded run defending safeties in the league right now. His willingness to do that and just get involved in the dirty work, just like Marcus Jones, has stood out since the summer. So good game for him overall, even with the touchdown. And Carlton Davis did have a penalty, of course, but he wasn't really thrown at in the day. So it wasn't the fiercest test, right? But what we wanted from this pass coverage was don't give up big plays. Like, it feels like that's happened every week. It's inferior competition, shut them down. That's what they did. Really, the big plays, Marcus Jones missed a tackle on that the jet sweep. That was rough, obviously, because it was man coverage. He was the only one who was really in the area. Craig Woodson also missed a tackle on that one, so you'd like to see them be better there. And then Robert Spillane, for as great a game as he had, want to give him a shout out as well. Obviously not a defensive backer. He's not in the secondary. But, man, he was everywhere. I mean, everywhere. The only real blemish that he had was charging downfield, and then Harold Fanning got behind him. But other than that, he was also fantastic. So I was impressed by the coverage, but specifically this secondary, man. They locked up a bad receiving core, as you'd expect them to do, but you still got to do it. They have been kind of leaky, so good job nipping that in the bud a bit.
Before we wrap up with the defensive line, you mentioned Marcus Jones in there missing a tackle. Last night on postgame, we talked about how great he's been this season, mentioned him as a potential Pro Bowler. Second watch through on the film, was Marcus as impressed as you were, or were you as impressed with Marcus on the second time through as you were in the first?
I was. And, the Isaiah Bond play wasn't great, but it's still the effort. You're going to get beat in the NFL, but can you finish and make the play? It's why, for example, PFF, some people get mad that they don't grade if somebody is in coverage and they lose, right? Clearly somebody gets burned, but you really never know, because if the ball is underthrown, then anything can happen depending on the defensive back and what they're able to do. So I was impressed. I also actually asked Marcus Jones today if he thinks that slot corner should be something that receives awards and is part of Pro Bowl voting and things like that. And of course, being the professional and the captain that he is, he said, whatever they do is fine. But he did note that it's a unique position. They're defending the run much more than outside corners do. He's like, we have to cover the speed across the field without really any help over the middle of the field. Like, it's a tough position to play, and it's not really fair to act like Christian Gonzalez and Marcus Jones are the same kind of player, because they're not. Like, Christian Gonzalez, I will say the secondary was good against the run, especially these cornerbacks. I've been very impressed the past couple weeks. Feels like they know they're going to get targeted, and it's been a point of emphasis that they need to come up and defend the run. But even more than that, just the versatility that we've seen from that position group, and specifically Marcus Jones. Every week he has a run stop, or you see him behind the line of scrimmage getting his nose dirty. He's having the best season of his career, and obviously he's captain for the first time. We didn't even know if he was going to be a fit in this defense, because he's pretty small for what Mike Vrabel typically likes in his corners. But when you play like Marcus Jones does, I mean, I'm not going to say size doesn't matter, but it certainly hasn't been as much of a factor as it could, because he's so instinctive, he's so competitive, and he's so smart. So yeah, it was just about as impressive. And I don't think he's going to get just a regular Pro Bowl vote or anything like that. I don't think he would make it with a lot of the outside corners, but man, he is absolutely deserving so far. I think he's now top 10 in pass breakups as well. So the stats are telling a pretty impressive tale as well.
Love it. Good stuff from Marcus. Good stuff from the secondary overall in this one for the Patriots defense. And we will wrap it up with a position group that always makes our Monday show. What else is new? The defensive line dominated again for the Patriots. Now, only one sack of Dylan Gabriel from Anthony Jennings. Barmore did start the game with some disciplinary issues, didn't play the first couple drives for the Patriots, but it didn't matter. We talked about that in the postgame. Impressive stuff for him to bounce back and have another solid day on the front. What'd you see from Barmore? What'd you see from Milton Williams and the rest of these guys up front that once again really changed the game from these guys in the front seven, or the front four rather, for the Patriots?
Just another week where the Patriots defensive tackles don't compile the raw stats, but when you look a little deeper, it's, they were making an impact. Christian Barmore, let me pull this up real quick. Christian Barmore was second in pressures among defensive interior players this week with 8. Jalen Redmond of the Vikings was the only one who had more. He had 9. Third behind Barmore was one Milton Williams with 6 quarterback pressures. These guys only combined for 1 hit, but the hurries that they were able to compile were very impactful. Christian Barmore, bro, they were double teaming him and he was just walking people back. It's crazy. you can see the panic in offensive linemen when he's really on, because they're just dragging him down. It's every single week, and Barmore's pissed after games because he's just like, they're holding me, and no one ever calls it. I don't get any of the penalties. But he's been phenomenal. Every week we say it, he is rounding back into that 2023 form. Is he quite there? Not yet, because I thought he was just absurd that year. Mm-hmm. But he's also not the main attraction, right? He's also helping other guys shake loose and on stunts and twists and things like that, drawing extra attention. Like, he's not getting single blocked. He's now mostly a nose tackle because of Milton Williams. So he's getting doubled all the time, and it doesn't matter. And then Milton Williams, as powerful as he is, the effort that he plays with to be able to maybe get blocked initially, or maybe his first move doesn't work, but he's not just going to rest on his laurels. He keeps going, and I think he and Barmore know they are the leaders of this defensive front, and they got to play like it, and they absolutely did. Also, Barmore had the highest pass rush win rate among interior defenders at 22.7%, because think about it. He didn't play the first quarter.
Right.
You're telling me he wouldn't have gotten one or two more pressures in the first quarter if he had played? I don't think so. So that was just a ridiculous performance from Christian Barmore, considering he wasn't even a guy who was in for the whole game. Khyiris Tonga continues to be impressive. Just like, talk about building a wall. The entire defensive line was really good in this game. Harold Landry made his plays. Caleb Von Chason blew up that running back. It's really funny if you look at it on the tape, which does not exist. I don't know what that is even. But like, he
allowed to watch, just not allowed to share.
Just a little Men in Black pen light, whatever. But yeah, those guys were good. Khyiris Tonga, another dominant day. And I want to shout out Corey Durden. He's been a very sneaky good addition to this defensive front, especially the interior. Sturdy against the run, got some penetration at times, and he walked back interior linemen to create some pressure as well. So shout out Corey Durden, man. He's been a good contributor. And a big reason that, like, another reason Barmore and Milton Williams don't have a ton of crazy stats is they rotate a ton, and everybody actually does get involved. Joshua Farmer, Khyiris Tonga said it's so cool seeing him look more comfortable in the pro game, got his hand on a throw, which was, I don't know what Dylan Gabriel was doing exactly, but shut down a shovel pass. So, man, this defensive interior, I don't know how many in the NFL are deeper, but they were very talented and had a huge impact, man. They really did build a wall, because every time Quinshon Judkins got the ball, it just felt like maybe he got a little bit of push and then was immediately getting driven back. So the defensive line is lifeblood of this defense, but it's nice that they're also getting some more help from their secondary, which is rounding into form. I don't know, man. The things that we usually complain about on this team, where it's like, it was the Browns offense.
Right.
That needs to be taken into account. But we already know the defensive line is good. The secondary, another week, maybe gaining confidence, and the run game continuing to look good. It's starting to get harder to find the real glaring weakness on this team. Maybe we'll see more as they play better teams like the Buccaneers and whatnot, but it was an impressive effort. It was imperfect. If you look at my game recap, I said there were plenty of things they needed to fix. I was just going to that. Yeah. But that's, I think, what everybody realizes with this team is like, no, they're not playing perfect. That's kind of scary, because they are locked in and they do a good job weekly of finding ways that they can improve the things that they've been poor at. So as much as we can say, can they maintain this? Are they going to lose steam? This doesn't feel like that 2021 team where it was like, they're definitely riding on the momentum.
Right.
And yes, they're playing bad teams, but I need to see. I mean, like, we've seen them against the Bills. That was the most hostile environment they'll be in this season, and they didn't really seem affected. Slow start for sure, but they were just as competitive in that game. So Mike Vrabel and this team giving us more reasons to be excited. It's like overwhelming in a different way than recent years, where it's so much bad that it's like, I don't even know what to talk about. This year, I'm just like, I want to give everybody love, but I can't, because I'm one human being, and y'all are showing out week in and week out against these bad teams. Maybe about a bad schedule, but you beat up on the bad teams, and that's what they've been doing.
Yeah, it does have a little bit of 2021 vibes, only because of how easy the schedule is, but they're hitting all their marks, and they're also, again, the big thing, and we can kind of wrap it with the quarterback again, is that they're doing it with such outstanding quarterback play. Even like in 21, yes, Mac was good, but it really felt like it was just more, I don't want to say more of a team effort, but like, you didn't see the types of plays Drake Maye is making from Mac Jones in 2021, right? Yeah. Like, there's levels to it. And the fact that quarterback is so important in this league, and you see that you have a top 3 MVP candidate quarterback right now, like, that just, again, it gives it a little bit more hope. It doesn't feel like as much of, I guess, a farce as 2021 was. And if they keep playing at the level they're playing with this easy schedule, there's a good chance that they actually do win the division, host a home playoff game, And then at that point, anything can happen in the postseason. You can get yourself on a little bit of a run. So I get the comparisons to 21, but it still does feel a little bit different. They've hit their marks. They've passed their tests. That Buffalo game was different than the 21 Buffalo game too, just because of like the scenario and I guess sort of the situation surrounding it and the fact that they put up points and kind of went toe to toe with Josh Allen and company. So overall, this is, again, it's overwhelming. It's exciting. They have a quarterback. They have a team. They have a coach that knows what's going on and what he's talking about. And everything's just coming together. There's not a ton of bad in this team right now. Now, the reason I was pulling up your article was, I know you did the good, the bad, and the shit that gets you beat. The one ugly one was the turnover-worthy plays, which we don't really have to go over again. We discussed it. Drake Maye had the interception. Travion fumbled on the goal line. Those things can bite you in a closer game. They're lucky that they didn't have to. And they get through the Browns, and now they go on to take on Atlanta next week before taking on Tampa in 2, which is going to be that next real test. But right now, things are looking up for this Patriots team. So any other closing thoughts before we get out of here, Taylor?
No, I'm good. I emptied the chamber.
Love it. All right, easy enough. That is our Browns versus Patriots recap. Again, Patriots win 32-13, 6-2 now on the year, remain in first place in the AFC East. We hit on Drake Maye. We hit on Will Campbell versus Myles Garrett. We hit some Travion Henderson. We hit the Patriots secondary and the dominant defensive line. So if you came in halfway through the show and you want to rewind, go check it out. Make sure to do so here on this episode. Taylor and I will be back later on in the week as the Patriots now get ready to take on the Atlanta Falcons. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to Patriots Press Pass here for the best Patriots coverage in the entire world. We have so many good pods coming out. Andrew and Mike Giardi will be on at 8 p.m. here for their weekly Monday night breakdown of the game. If you missed Alex and Brian on Patriots Beat earlier, they started at 5, so go check out those guys on demand here. A ton of other Boston sports coverage on the CLNS Media Network right now, too. I know that we have 10 p.m. Bruins postgame reaction. We have 11 p.m. Celtics postgame reaction, so plenty of Boston sports. It's the sports equinox today, as all 4 major sports are playing. So keep it here across the CLNS Media Network for all of that. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you soon. Peace out, everyone.